I already really like what they did. So maybe they draft something different. So maybe a little more damage in the top lane, because they already had a composition that was very, very tanky, had a strong front line to protect the Kai'Sa, which we mentioned, but maybe they needed some more damage in the top lane. Maybe they needed something different in the mid lane. They had the Orianna, I don't think she was an issue at all, but something that could be engaging more, could be reaching the backline, because you can't rely on a Kai'Sa to be reaching the backline, although she can, but most of the times the carries on the side of G2 Hell were just super protected anyway.
Similar bans as to what we saw in Game 1. Rek'Sai, Senna going to be taken away from G2 there, and the Vel'Koz respect ban for Super Elchi. Probably going to be on that Orianna. Like we said, it was 6 times in 7 games that she has played the Orianna. Xayah going to be taken away from Miela, so still taking away a hyperscaling AD carry from a big playmaker that they have, J-Real.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't banned away the Ezreal, but admittedly, NNOwO didn't pick it up. They had the opportunity to, so maybe they themselves are not super sold on the pick as like their one and done situation, and maybe it was just a fortunate time that we just got to see that. But we are going to see G2, and I do believe G2 are picking in actual order of where they're playing, so this isn't necessarily their direct draft. So in case people at home are like, wow, they first picked a top laner, it's not as it seems.
But what is as it seems is that is an Ivern. So we've got kind of 2 shielding champions here on whatever they're going to give to Miela. So definitely a different look from Super Sana on the Ivern, kind of the most back-footed jungler that you can have. Meanwhile, on the other side, the Nocturne locked in for G2.
Yeah, that's a little complicated, but at the same time, it lines up with what we've seen from NNOwO anyway. Protect your carries. I would love to see more than just Miela on the carry. Get Zenith something different, because we already have the Orianna. Oh my god, I mentioned Kalista and Vayne. Vayne being a Hubbard. Interesting. But again, Tifa on the Xerath makes quite a lot of sense. The Nocturne with a lot of pressure in the early game. Super well suited for G2 Hell.
Yeah, this champion kind of immobility is its only real weakness, the Xerath, and like you said, Sofjan, if they could protect their carries, G2 are a very well-oiled machine, and just causing enough chaos in kind of the front of the fight with an Ornn, with a Nocturne ult, turning off the lights, will by itself provide enough cover for the Xerath should this go their way. The Gwen will in fact be locked in, Kalista banned away. So Miela not going to want to deal with that Kalista again, taking that away from Kal'Thas, but Kal'Thas, we know she's got a lot of tools in her bag.
Yeah, that she does. I like the Gwen pick up there. The Vayne was obviously being hovered. That actually could have been something that Zenith would play. They did play it yesterday, so it's in their wheelhouse, but they're going to go for the Gwen. I like it. It gives a bit of mixed damage, and the Ezreal being hovered here. I like this pick a lot, right? It's something that I kind of really affiliate with Miela now because of how well they played this pick yesterday, and I'm looking forward to seeing more.
It was in a more traditional poke composition the last time she played it, but look, the reason they won it was basically because, I mean, yes, they played the poke composition really, really well, but Miela was just free firing, right? Now, that's one thing maybe I do worry about. Ezreal is slippery, he's got self-peel, but they played that and had success with it in a much more front-to-back composition. This right now has a lot less of that. You don't have a true tank just yet. The only position you have to lock in still is support, where even if you pick a true tank, you're balling on a budget. You're still on a support budget. Jhin Nautilus on the other side. So Kal'Thas and Columbo Bull still going with a high-octane, very aggressive kill potential bottom lane. Ezreal Braum will be the pick, Sofjan.
I really like it. Oh, that is super balanced to me. So you mentioned how they were missing the front line. Big potential to tank. There it is. Big potential to CC. There it is. I love to see the Ivern because it feels like they really just want to protect and enable. So we're not going to expect that much damage from Super Elchi. She's going to be protecting the Ezreal. And Zenith, I am super happy to see something on the sorts of a Gwen because I was feeling like they were lacking some damage. So the Duelist is going to be incredible. Again, you have that percentage of HP that she's going to be dealing, and she has short cooldowns as well, considering she has that area of effect where she's going to deny CC. That is going to be huge against the side of G2 Hell. So I think that's a very super well lined up composition for NNOwO, but G2 Hell is not slacking either.
No, and that Jhin stands out to me. Kaltis, what she was able to do in game 1 was monstrous on the Kalista. A little bit more of a meta pick here in the Jhin. He has reared his head back into the meta. A pick that, but still, like the Kalista, has to get going early to really feel the effects. And J-Real, a criticism often of Jhin, it's the I'm helping Jhin. You might be landing all your skill shots, you might be landing all your auto attacks, you might be hitting big old fourth shots, but the second anyone builds resistances, Jhin really starts to struggle. Those crits don't hit quite as hard. But man, this is a very squishy team that NNOwO has built. If I am Kaltis right now, I am just frothing at the mouth at how fun this Jhin is going to be to pilot.
Yeah, I was thinking that a little bit as well. Like, is Jhin going to do enough damage? Is he going to be able to really kind of deal with some of these members? But as you said, they are a little bit squishier. That's Jin's playground, right? There's 4 squishies, 4 bullets in the chamber. I think we can all do the maths there. So it's a sentiment where I do think this Jhin pick could come through. It works super well with the Xerath as well. So there is a lot of potential for this comp to pop off as well. And look, who needs damage on your ADC when Tifa be doing 40k?
Facts, bars and facts. J-Real be spitting, and we be getting into draft very, very soon here. NNOwO with their backs against the wall against the reigning champions, G2 Hell. These are 2 teams that love to go aggressive, love to throw big punches. Soph-Chan and J-Real, we're getting into draft real quick here. But, Soph, I'll give you the mic. Post-draft analysis, anything else you want to say before we do?
I think I want to say that I'm expecting a game 3, so I'm expecting this to be the point where NNOwO can flip everything on its head. So I want to see them having such a good Gwen that can split push, that can be a menace on the team fights for mid game, and I want to see that Ezreal and Miela popping off just like J-Real casted yesterday. So those are the things that are really going to enable them to get into a game 3, and I think they have all the potential to do it, all the tools at their disposal.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing another Amelia pop-off game from the Ezreal. I think that'd be really exciting. And if, like you said, Soph-Chan, if NNOwO can flip this series on its head, one, it would be a blessing from above because this series deserves 3 games. NNOwO, I think they deserve a shot to take it to a winner-take-all game 3, push the defending champions. And what better way to do it on a bit of a wacky composition with the Ivern back in the meta and with the Ezreal as well. J-Real, what do you think? I mean, for NNOwO, I mean, and maybe, again, I ask you this question because you know, have also, like Soph and like Solari, been around this scene a while. I think of a team like BDS Valkyrie, right? Where they used to be Sea Pandas. And then they got picked up by a stalwart European org in BDS. I mean, maybe this is, I mean, again, and this is wild speculation, by the way. We're not reporting anything. But NNOwO feels like a fantastic candidate as this roster who kind of burst onto the scene without that big tag attached to them that could be next, next up to have another org take a look at them and say, hey, here's some money, here's some structure, here's some coaching.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that this org is really strong. I think that their players have shown a lot of potential and their ceiling is not being met, right? Because we've seen them play, we've seen them have some highs, we've also seen them have some kind of questionable moments that could just be executed by more practice, by more coaching, all of those things above. So this team is definitely one that I don't think necessarily we have seen their full ceiling yet, and they're already so good. The fact that we're already saying, could they be G2 Hell, potentially one of the best female teams in the world, right? And we're talking about a team that has just kind of turned up. This team for sure can pop off in the later future.
Well, we'll see. Backs against the wall again. Into the game we go. And again, shout out to Logitech for making all of this possible, sponsoring Pathfinders and Women's League of Legends. NNOwO trying to work a miracle here. They will have to do it in uphill battle fashion against G2 Hell. Soph-Chan, J-Real, take us home.
Indeed, potentially the last game, but maybe it's not, Soph-Chan. It could be the gateway to game 3, so we'll have to find out. Now, I want to talk, we obviously always chat a little bit about our expectations of this game. Hold that phone a second, because we are going to get a little bit of an invade. But Soph-Chan, neither team, to me, is screaming early game. And for both these teams that we've talked about, how they love to take control of the game early, I'm a bit surprised.
Well, I'm not surprised to see NNOwO going for something a little more bold. Lizzie could be the one being caught up here.
Oh no, they managed to get the jump. This is an Ornn that is gone. The flash is there, but I don't think it's going to lead to anything good. Woo! And look who gets first blood. It's Miela.
Oh, the ADC eating well. Love to see it. G2 Hell was looking for having such good pressure in the early game, especially because you need your Jhin to grow. well, the enemy ADC is going to have at least a double long sword advantage there in the bottom lane to fight those early minutes. So that is massive for NNOwO. And where is this proxy I'm having a look at? Jesus, okay, Zenith.
Zenith just like, yeah, I'm just gonna turn up, then just gonna walk back to lane normally, so immediately not gonna lead to too much there, as we are gonna see the junglers both pathing out to the bot side. Obviously Sana playing onto the Ivan, a little bit of a different one in terms of clearing. Obviously doesn't have to actually fight the camps, will just kind of soak them up, but pathing from what looks like top to bottom, because she will have to go and reclaim those camps. Now Miela obviously picking up that early lead is one that we're gonna have to look into, and I've got to ask you, what's the kind of situation Ezreal versus Jhin? Where do the power spikes lie?
I think it would rely more on the supports of this one. Okay, you managed to escape Colombo hooking onto the wall, so I think in this matchup it relates more to the support. So level 2 for either of these two is great, but at the moment they're all going to be very similar. Both of them, they have the hook. The other one has the proc onto the Q, getting the concussive shards. So it's very stalemate. In regards to the ADCs, the only thing that's going to make a huge difference is the level 2 for Ezreal, or level 3 when he decides to get the blink. And well, so far from that, I don't think much is going to happen. Ezreal just wants to be poking, as we see here. Miela controls the wave, so they have priority. And just setting out the pace for themselves.
And right now, Miela not going over aggressive. Obviously, my remark was that there was a step where they're a little bit too far forward. Although, as I say those words, they step forward and they fire off a lot of damage. G2 forced back underneath their tower. And now Sana also making their way down to the bottom lane, but will be met there by Sheena. A little bit behind the play, but I do wonder, are they actually just going to go for this one? It's quite deep for the Ivan, although admittedly it's getting the better of Sheena in that 1v1, and now supported by their bot lane. But this is a very early tower dive. They also have brought their mid laner. This is a full-on play from NNOwO, but I don't think they're going to get too much from it.
Wow, because that is impressive of a switch in performance and just decision making from NNOwO. They have a different stance on this game. They started out with a 5-stack in the jungle top side, then they come here with a big push, not just with the gank with Ivan, definitely not one of the highest threats of junglers in the early game, but is it going to be? And it's a stun.
Countess getting rooted up, and it is going to be Colombo that pays the price, getting taken down. And Miela with another kill. So-chan, we've been here before.
We have, at least for the side of G2 Hell, they're gonna go for an invade. There is not a single thing to be found. And to be fair, you don't want to go on a Gwen for a dive. You at least want your own horn for Lysia to be able to do something on this side of the map. So they're just going to end up roaming around, and Sheena doesn't find anything. But that's fine, Super Archie with no mana.
Oh, Super Elchi going to use that flash, getting away, and that will give Teether a little bit of control in this lane. So a nice movement from Sheena, starting off a little bit more in the way of G2's success. As right now it does feel like it's quite NNOwO excited, especially in that bot lane, as Countess able to fire off a lot of damage, but this might be the return kill we were looking for. Ezreal though stepping forward, Miela looking for this one, but gonna be in a bit of trouble. The fourth shot doesn't do damage, and Countess isn't able to pick up the kill, but it is going to be one for Colombo, but the hook misses, not going to be able to find the double. So both ADCs down. I'm surprised they shouldn't go for the full shot on Miela.
Oh, I was holding my breath, even choked a little bit because I was looking at Sari. The health bar on the Braum was just disappearing, ticking with the ignite. Oh my god. At the end of the day, it was a lot of pressure coming from the both ADCs that allowed that to happen. So because Countess was still focusing onto Miela, they got the kill. And on this side, Miela was just on the back line. So it's kind of, in my mind, it feels like an analogy to vertical jungling. It's both ADCs going past each other and they just attack the supports, and the supports are just trying to stay alive and trying to get CC going. In this case, the final blow there for NNOwO was from Sari.
Yeah, so a little bit less frightening than it being from Caltis. Obviously, was able to secure quite a decent lead in game 1, even though they were down. But it feels like Miela a lot more comfortable on this Ezreal, right? And I've brought it up multiple times. I think this pick is really strong. As hold the phone, Miela going to have to arcane shift out, but Caltis on the run after. Doesn't have flash, though, won't be able to close that distance, but a decent chunk of damage maybe forces them to go back to base.
It might, it just might, but both junglers are around the area, and the Scuttle Crab is going to be taken by NNOwO. If Sheena can't do anything about it, we'll see what's going to happen right now.
Yeah, but the rotation down from Super Elchi is first. Tifa on their way, but not going to be able to get into range just yet for their normal abilities. But right, the Arcane is going to be popped, and Miela going to have to dodge this one. Wow. Doesn't manage to dodge. Tifa just too strong at hitting those ultimate shots and takes out the ADC.
Tifa just built different. really built different on those snipes. But I really want to congratulate G2 House bot lane as well for their engage onto NNOwO's Miela, because you see them not having the flash. It was such a good Columbo Blue going over the wall with a hook. Actually, I think it was with a Hextech flash or just a regular flash, going over the wall, getting the hook, and then Countess landing the W on top. Great. So it was a lovely setup to get them back to base, as you mentioned. They do and Countess just freezes the lane, gets such a big advantage for herself to control how things are going to be going, and allowing for Sheena to come back and gank them. But I was not expecting Tifa to just shine with those arcane barrages.
Yeah, it really just is a lot of damage that is being pumped out by Tifa. Obviously 40k in game 1 and looking strong in game 2. Now, a lane that we haven't talked about as much in this matchup is that top side, and Zenith having a much better time in this game versus Lysia. Obviously last game was playing the Ornn, so couldn't really push that advantage as much as they can now on this Gwen.
Yes, Sheena just looking for it, and the paranoia goes in. The kill is gonna land. Just one more auto. Super Ouchie goes back.
Ooh, Sana. Stepping a bit far forward there, Sana. I felt like they could have potentially turned around, but obviously cooldowns were utilized, and Super Ouchie going to be picked up. It's now in the bot lane. G2, they've kind of started to establish a bit of dominance, right? We saw the early kills go over to the side of Miela, and it feels very reminiscent of game 1, where they had a lead, but then they weren't able to really push that, and it now gives a lot of space for G2 to just kind of control the lane, to keep themselves in priority, and they are just holding that out, but we are going to see Sana make their way down bot.
Yeah, and Zenith is going to deal a lot of damage on Lysia, but the one hits and the knock-up into Sheena, taking this kill. Top laner is going to go down, which I think J-Real is really good from G2 Hell, getting that rotation going on other lanes, because Countess is eating good now, as you said, controlling the wave. That is what they want at the moment, and because it's an Ivan, you don't have that big of a threat of them like soloing the Drake. Yeah, that's not going to happen. If you have control of the wave on the bot lane, then you have control of the Drake as well.
It could happen, but it's going to take a really long time. Like, I'll tell you that. I've played Ivan. I've tried to solo Drake. It's a while, right? A lot of things can happen in that time, but right now, we are going to see the gank into the bot lane. Good flash from Columbia Blue will get them away. Daisy was utilized, and maybe this does open up for the dragon to be taken, but we'll have to find out if that is what they decide. Right now, though, I want to talk about that top lane gank a little bit more, because they got the kill on to Sheena, and that is obviously quite a big threat, because Nocturne post 6, very, very dangerous, and can become quite a strong assassin. Obviously, Bruiser build has been a little bit more pertinent, but if they can get onto Miela and force them away in these fights and give a lot of pressure, well, then that's just another threat that they will have to deal with, and G2 can kind of sit back with their Xerath and Jhin and fire from range. But right now, we are going to see the plan from NNOwO is to pick up that first Logitech G Drake. And so, Chan, are Drakes going to be an important part of this game? Are they going to be basically the crux of whether a team can win or lose?
I think that's variable. I don't think it's going to decide every single thing, because, for example, G2 Hell in the previous game, they took all the Drakes and they did win the game, but that doesn't look like this is going to be the case once again. And NNOwO has a good pressure, has established a good dominance in how they are performing in this early game, and to be fair, just a stance overall of how they want to play. And you have the proxy with the Gwen, you have how they engaged in those team fights. Oh my god, but G2 Hell going on to Super Algae.
Oh, you gotta dodge. You gotta dodge left and right. It doesn't really matter. There's so many things you have to dodge from the two ultimates, and Caltis and Tifa will finally work their way to find the last shot. Super Ulchi is going to be taken down, and G2 have started to build a gold lead. They are now 1,700 gold in the lead.
That's good. That's pretty good. Around the 11-minute, but man, does that feel different from the last game? G2 was around on the 4-minute mark. They were very much ahead, and this one, NNOwO standing such a good ground, controlling stuff. I don't think that lead is that big because they managed to at least get a Drake out of it. Paranoia locks.
Oh, here's the knock-up as well. And in the zone too, the fear lands. And beautiful play. Arlesia stepping into the mist, right, to get the knock-up. What a good play.
Definitely. It's such a good micro that the team has, knowing that champions, it all works so well. And one thing that you mentioned, J-Real, about like mid-games and how the team fights are going to go. Oh, Super Ouchie, my meat, Tifa here. No, we're fine. So I would say what interests me the most is NNOwO going to try to protect and going to be able to protect Miela.
Ooh, Miela may just be able to protect themselves because they're dealing a lot of damage, but here's the TP. Elysia is going to be able to step forward and force away Miela, but in that 2v2, it's looking dangerous for G2 still.
It really is. Look at Columbia going so low on health. Herald and Daisy, par on par, holding hands in the mid lane. And what I'm looking forward the most, as I was saying, mid-game, is Miela going to be able to be protected by shielding, by everything? Is it Zenith? She does have a dash over the wall and is going to keep safe. But overall, love to see so much rotation and map awareness coming from both teams, J-Real.
And I do agree. I think that there is a little bit of an aspect of it. Is Miela going to be able to get off the damage? I think the range from the Mystic shots does give them quite a bit of a leeway in that fight. Obviously, Tifa is going to outrange, and Caltis can also deal quite a bit from range with their ultimate to the curtain call, but I think Miela will be able to sustain. It's whether or not, in my mind, Zenith can get into the backlane of G2, because if Tifa is allowed to free hit once again, well, okay, it could come down to a long-range battle between Miela and Tifa, but we've already seen how much damage Tifa can do in the game.
Yeah, they really know how to establish that pressure. Caltis has the control and knowledge on the champion. She is doing super well. On the top side, I think Elysia is also standing such a good ground because Zenith is supposed to be doing some damage, but Elysia is dealing the damage instead. So that's massive for them. And Sheena going on for a flank.
We've been here before, haven't we? I feel like we've seen this.
Just
Once?
like a minute ago, like the last cooldown.
Maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
Definitely feels like there's a bit of a target put on the back of Zenith, especially by Sheena, and she's collecting quite a few kills, quite a bit of gold now, 2,000 ahead of Sana themselves. But hold on, the fighting is not done yet. Rise of Arcane, as we see Tuberochi knocked up, he's going to be able to pick up the Orianna, and Sana coming back to try and save Sari will do enough. The shield just going to dissuade them. Ooh, Columbia just missing, but Sana now in trouble. The shower is going to fall, but able to get away from the fear.
Wow. And we finally reached to a point where G2Hell is getting pressure on taking down the turrets, and they are having more control over the team fight. Overall, it's not just that, but we have Sheena on a 4-0-1 Nocturne. Is the snipe going to land? Okay, we got 1, 2. Okay, the other one was back to base, so nobody is going to be sniped down on that HP bar. So, what I wanted to say is that you asked, what is the power spike for a couple of things? Bot lane, I did explain. Now for G2Hell, they have reached that power spike, especially jungle and mid lane. Tifa has completed the item. As I speak, Grey zoom there from our observer, she also finishes Rabadons. So that is huge. She's going to be dealing incredible damage as they go in Super Ouchie again.
It's just I feel like it's bullying at this point, right? Like, I feel like has Sheena just got a vendetta against solo laners? Because every single time I see her on the map, she's killing either the top or the mid lane. Now, we are going to see a trade for NNOwO. They are going to be able to pick up the next Logitech G Dragon, which is going to be the Ocean Drake, and that does put them in good stead in terms of not giving G2 a soul point for a long time. But look at the rest of the map. They're down 4.5k, they're down kills, they're down 1 tower, and pressure just feels like it's all G2 hell.
It's true, but at the same time, you have at least some leeway because you have accumulated 2 Drakes, and that is going to be helping quite a lot. As you said, at least it stalls for an Elder Drake that I hadn't seen in a while before the last match. Super Sana might be in a bad spot, but maybe they're going to turn this one around.
Yeah, and I think Sheena going to just leave this one, and Miela just hasn't really, in my opinion, been able to get into the game, right? Like, you kind of talked about, are they going to be able to get into these team fights? But how do NNOwO bring them into the game a little bit earlier than just the late game team fights?
It's an interesting question because it relies so much on how G2 Hell plays, because everything is going to rely on, is G2 Hell going so incredibly aggressive that you just have to focus on protecting Miela, and even Miela doesn't have enough time to shoot her abilities because she's going to have to be dodging hooks, dodging arcane barrages, dodging, I don't know, on horns, every single thing, W's from the Jhin. So it's just very difficult to predict how NNOwO is going to be fighting. So maybe it would rely on G2 Hell making a mistake, which I don't think they're planning on doing. They're playing very consistently. The next possibility is they still get a good team fight or a peel-off team fight where they pick someone off and then they scale up until you're getting soul point. That would be a very good place to be.
Sounds like you haven't read the script, Sofchan. I think it says 35 minutes, G2 will make mistake. And we'll have to get to there, though. So right now, Zenith is going to make an aggressive play. Obviously, against Lydia in a 1v1, they should be able to pick up the wins. But they haven't been in many 1v1s, right? It's been a lot of 2v1s. We've seen a lot of action from Sheena getting involved in those fights. And NNOwO just feels like they aren't being able to create their own opportunities, right? And you've kind of talked about it, about getting Miela into the game, but also from Sana, right? Playing the Ivan, a champion that I would think is quite proactive in its play, just hasn't been able to find the mark, whereas Sheena, who is kind of limited to a cooldown of their ultimate, has been able to make many things happen.
They really have, but I feel like NNOwO, with the previous match and what we've seen yesterday, they have such good control of the mid game. They're now reaching the 19-minute mark in a little bit. This is going to be the moment where they can turn things on its head. Not because there is just a big thing happening. For example, the Azrael could be potentially getting that Muir mana soon, finishing out the second item. That could make a huge difference, because even if you don't have the range for your Q, you're still going to have range for your True Shot Barrage. So at the end of the day, they have plenty of tools, especially with Super Ouchie, the Shockwave, and I would say the biggest wild card of all would be Zenith with the Gwen, and how they can try to utilize her for split pushing as they are right now. She's on the bot lane, or just being in a good flank on any team fight.
And NNOwO, I feel like I'm looking for them to change the tempo, to be honest. Like, they're kind of sitting back, but it just feels like G2 are just gaining more and more of a lead. Now up to 6k gold. They're taking a lot of pressure around the map. They've got rid of all of the tier 1 towers, and they're now starting to look for these tier 2s, and it almost feels like NNOwO, yes, they're not kind of speeding up the pressure that G2 have, but it also feels like they're not equalizing it, and we are going to see a bit of a remnants of a fight here. But again, it's a situation where it feels like NNOwO aren't able to get into this fight, and now the curtain call opens up, the right of the arcane comes through, and the paranoia, and goodbye to Miela. You are the first target, but it might be an even trade. They might be able to pick up Sheena here, who is very low. They will get that gold, and they will get that shutdown, but for what cost? They're going to lose another. That's 2 for 1 overall, plus a tier 2 tower. G2 just taking it all.
Unfortunately for NNOwO, J-Real, I mentioned there that they would need the extra damage in the draft. Well, they have the Gwen, but she wasn't there in the fight. So you gotta be very assertive of when you choose, okay, you're gonna be split pushing. But when you have your tier 3s under attack and a potential dive under attack, and all of the abilities that we have taken into consideration with the paranoia, the curtain call, then I think your team needs your help. And the Gwen is not going to be dealing few damage because she has 2 items completed, half of the second item, boots. So she's in a good place. Even though she is 0, 3, and 1, the Gwen still can stack up well because of her leveling up curve. And now, G2Hell doing this first Drake of the game for themselves is okay for NNOwO to give it away, considering that they have already established a 2 Logitech G Drake lead.
Logitech G Drake taken, as you said, and that's going to be a 1 for G2. Their first of the game, and obviously stalling out the potential for a soul for NNOwO. But it's Cloud. I don't think anyone is really dying to get the Cloud Drake soul, as Zenith might be dying for a drop, though, as they are going to be caught out in the jungle by Sheena. Ornhorn going to get the knock-up as well, but not going to be anywhere near enough damage to take a kill. And G2Hell, it almost feels like they're just kind of relaxed and slowly playing this one out, right? It's very methodical, very kind of, I feel like it's like library reading a book kind of energy, you know what I mean? Like they're very strategic, methodical, and they're slowly working their way through to the point of where they want to be winning, and they are just getting it to happen. And NNOwO, I feel like they need to switch it up. They need to introduce some loud noise, some bangs, and something a bit crazy to try and distract G2 and throw them off their path.
It might take a lot to be able to do that, and over the wall goes the Azrael.
But that's the start. This is what we want to see. They're starting to perk up. They're starting to find a kill, and at least 1 kill back does open up them for options, right? They've lost the tier 2 in the top side. That's a bit more gold to G2. But if they can start to find some picks around the map, if they can start to find some pressure themselves, maybe, just maybe, they can crawl their way back into this game.
It's possible. It's very possible. I love their team fight, as you mentioned. Well, to be fair, it wasn't even a team fight. It was just a pick-off. Very well done. Even though you just take 1 person and it's the support, it's quite enough. Because you just helped Azrael to finish out the Trinity, finish out the Murmana, and they already have half the next item too. So that's big for NNOwO. Again, having the 2 Drakes lead, now in this case 1 Drake lead, is always going to help them. The soul is very much away. Elder Drake is not even in the picture, but the one thing that is the Baron. It spawned, we're on 23 minutes, and things are really and surely rotating towards this top side of the map. So it might as well just be decided the next team fight whether they are going to have any chance to keep on fighting this game or not.
It feels like a lot of stakes for quite early on in the game. It almost feels like we're at a later stage, you know what I mean? Because it does feel like G2 are like that 1 team fight away from really just opening up this game and ending it for NNOwO, and maybe NNOwO are only 1 fight away as well, and that just feels like a very late game characteristic. But we're only 24 minutes in, so like we barely got into the later stages of the mid game, and it does feel like NNOwO are kind of getting pushed into this corner, and they need to start to fight their way out. Baron has obviously spawned, wards are going down from G2, and they are controlling this area really well. And NNOwO, I'm kind of scratching my head thinking, like, can they play a front-to-back team fight, right? Will they have the damage to kind of contend with Tifa and Kaltis? And it doesn't feel like they're going to be able to, and the only way I can really see them picking up a fight is through Zenith getting some sort of flank and getting onto that backline and just snipping rid of both Tifa and Kaltis immediately. But we're going to see if the fight does start here. They are going to get the True Shot Barrage to get a bit of damage, but now G2 can use that range. They can start to use their ultimates to push back the side of NNOwO. The Nocturne gonna turn the map dark though. Paranoia, and here comes Zenith. We talked about this Gwen being a potential threat, and they are finally in the fight, and they are ripping through G2.
Pushing it forward, Zenith going to try to get even another one on Kaltis, and that is the one thing we need to see. And the slow with the stun and a flash away from Kaltis, and then, oh no, she misses! Miela, the last 1 hit, 1 Q, she can't lend it, but Zenith did take the life out of Tifa, and they are now 5 players against 2. Now 3 players on the side of G2Hell standing.
And a few important players, though. Sheena is still alive and kicking, still has the potential to try and steal this one away. We are going to get Countess back, but I don't know if they're going to have time. 8k on the Baron. It is slowly being taken as the TP going to be utilized as well. 5 members from NNOwO trying to defend this objective. Zenith, almost full HP, has come back into this. And we talked about the Gwen being dangerous. The Baron is going to be picked up, and Countess now trying to remove some of those buffs. Gets up and close and personal with Sana. Will not get the kill, though. And again, it is going to go over to NNOwO. They started to find some success, and can they lead to more? Zenith pushing forward into 4 members will get taken down.
Very close though. Zenith almost took down Columbia Blue, and it would have been a 1-for-1. That's the best of any world that you're going to enjoy out of a fight like that. But for G2 Hell, it's massive to at least take one of those Baron buffs out. And J-Real, I love to see NNOwO performing like this, because we know how good they are in mid-game, and that's what we mentioned about this Baron fight. They either win it and they keep on playing the game, or they lose it and the game could have been lost. So it would rely on getting peeled, and it worked. The pickups were there. They were getting one person at a time. Nobody really had the time or the place to be standing still like Countess, using curtain call and just be vulnerable for a second, because Miela is gonna go after you. Zenith is gonna go after you. And it worked out great for them at the end of the day. 4 people down on the side of G2 Hell, and the Baron confirmed for NNOwO, while G2 Hell has just guaranteed that second Logitech G Cloud Soul.
Yeah, the Logitech G Drake has been picked up there by G2 Hell. That's the second, as you mentioned, and that will give them a little bit more movement speed. And it's funny, I feel like I almost cursed them, right? Like, it was a situation where I was like, yeah, the only way I can really see them losing the fight is if, you know, Zenith is there and gets into the backline, and then, yeah, things happened, right? Things happened. Zenith got into the backline and was able to make it work, and it really is quite a dangerous prospect, right, the Gwen, because also, Miela is still hitting pretty hard. They are at 3 items now. They are doing quite a bit of damage, and they are one to watch out for. But the question I have is, can they repeat what they just did, right? Is G2 maybe a little bit slacking in that fight? They didn't really have the same focus on targets that we've seen before. They weren't able to pick up Super Orochi or Miela off the bat from those ultimates, and then they were going to get caught out. But we're going to find some answers soon, it looks like, because G2 are mobilizing around mid.
They are J-Real, and I think the answer to your question is NNOwO can repeat that, because I don't think it was a slack on the side of G2 Hell. It was just well executed fight and strategy on the side of NNOwO. So Zenith going onto the backline is one thing that I mentioned. You either commit to having her in the backline, or you recognize that you really need the damage and you really need the help in your team fights. So having the Gwen on those was crucial to have a successful outcome. So at the end of the day, I think it's replicable. I think you can duplicate it, have it happen again, and not rely on just being a G2 Hell mistake. It's now based on people having good levels and good items.
Well, good items, good levels. We are going to be scaling. We're almost at the 30-minute mark, so it feels like we might get there.
Finally,
we might get to everyone being full build at this rate.
It's true. We are getting there. Now, remember once upon a time when Tifa was so ahead that she had just finished her Rebodons. Now she has Leandries as well. But on the other side, NNOwO doesn't really need Super Orochi to have that much damage on the Orianna. She's going to be enabling, she's going to be shielding and using that shockwave. The extra damage that is dealt, mwah, perfect. You love it. But it's going to rely on Zenith and the Azrael, and both of them are stacking on items right now.
Indeed, they are. Miela able just to keep farming this one up in a much slower tempo. I feel like we had game 1, which was like battle of the early game, and then it's like game 2 is just like, we're going to play till 40 minutes, and then we will fight once. The winner will take it all. It's definitely a perspective, and G2 Hell has all control over here on this top side jungle. Of course, there's still just a little bit less than 2 minutes for the next Baron, and they're trying to focus on taking the waves, as you would expect as well from Zenith on the side of NNOwO, pushing out the bot lane, trying to get some dominance on the other sides, because you want to get team fights where you start them yourself, because if G2 Hell stacks the CC themselves, they start doing the chain, then things don't look really well for NNOwO. Yeah, it's a bit of a pause angle right now, which is interesting. Hopefully everything goes back fine and we're back in the game, because we're getting up to an important point of the game. The next Baron is about to spawn, and obviously that is where it all went wrong for G2 in the last game. We talked about how if they picked up that Baron, they probably would have just aced out the game. It probably would have been over. Probably would have been talking with 4x4 about how that game went and how G2 made their way to the final, but they didn't. It was a big turnaround for NNOwO. They managed to pick this one up, and their chance is rising again, Sofchan. So what should G2 do to change their prospects and almost give them a different future moving into the next Baron?
Well, I am just going to echo what I just said in the game. They really need to start the fight themselves. You can't leave the enemy team to engage, because you have so much potential of chaining CC that you have to be the ones to take the lead. You go in, you get the paranoia first, make everybody blind, stack on the CC on them because they can't see you coming. Then you jump into the backline with the Nocturne, deal so much damage on Mayella, and then you're just going to be left with one damage dealer in the form of Zenith, who's going to be a little more tanky, a little more survivability on her end. But it's much easier to deal with one than it is to be kiting the abilities thrown out by Mayella.
And like, obviously we've seen both the teams that will make it to the finals compete, right? We don't know who is going to join Go Aurora in the finals, but if you are Go Aurora, is there anything that you're kind of taking away from either of these teams about kind of your prospect in the matchup? Obviously that is looking a little bit further ahead, but while we're on the pause, why not speculate?
Definitely. I think it's a good moment, if any. I believe that Go Aurora needs to take away from these two, whoever is going to the grand finals, that both of them know how to bounce back. It's not any of the type of teams that have to be in such a good lead to be able to take a game. Of course, G2 Hell had the lead and they took the previous game, but this is not the case for this one. It was, if we have a look, for example, at the Go chart at the end of the game, whatever the result, we're going to see that it's very close and a lot of fluctuation, because at any point, did we go farther than 4k gold ahead for either of these teams? So at the end of the day, what Go Aurora needs to focus on is their mid game, because these two teams know how to control them, they know how to bounce back, and they don't need a lead to finish up a game.
Well, talking about finishing up a game, it might be coming soon, as right now Nocturne going to go aggressive straight on to Super Sana, and they pick up that kill straight away. You talked about G2 starting the fight themselves. They do just that, and it is looking much better for them. Curtain Call opens up, but Zenith, the danger has arrived. Can she turn the tide of this battle? Going to step back, just giving the room for her team to move forward, but now it opens up for G2 to go for Baron.
It's a massive clever play from G2 Hell, because you're taking down the enemy jungler just before the timer, which is something that we have always talked about. G2 Hell, they know how to keep track of timers and they know when to engage. So you take down enemy jungler, no smite available, no stealies coming to happen on this Drake. Very clearly and easily taken by G2 Hell, while we are still stacking for NNOwO's third Drake of the game. And it looks like it's going to be a Baron for a Drake trade.
Baron for a Drake. I know it's the Logitech G Drake, but I think I'd rather have a Baron, to be honest.
Well, yes, of course, but in this situation, it's a case of G2 Hell was dictating the pace. They took the jungler, they of course are going to take Baron. There is no reason whatsoever for NNOwO to try to contest it, because they're going to lose. By taking the Drake, you at least take something back out of it, which is really, really good, considering you had to burn your top laner's TP, and it didn't really accord to anything good out of it. It was just a stalemate.
Oh, here comes the Ride the Arcane. 1, 2, 3 will hit, but not going to be the fourth or fifth. But in goes the Nocturne. Quite a bold play. There's the hook though from Glumblabla, and they should have set up, but they're living for so long. Super Rochi just does not go down. The shields are too much to contend with, and now G2 are the ones that are on the back foot. They're going to have to start running this one back. The damage they took was just too much to handle. Lysia and Sheena both going low, and Glumblabla even falling down. The Ivan Orianna shielding is wild.
It's not just that. It's Ivan's redemption. It's Brom Solari. What? I love it. I think it's incredible because it matches so well with the draft they composed anyway, because your champions are already going to be protecting the enemy, your allies from the enemy team. So the items are just really enhancing everything. I love that. It was such a long fight, and what G2Hell needs to do and take out of that is we need to get someone down immediately, because now Super Ouchie has a stopwatch. So she didn't have it just until this fight, so she was relying on the protection from the rest of the team, but now she has a stopwatch, and Zenith has completed that Zhonya's a while back. Both of them guaranteeing that the team fight is going to last, and G2Hell needs to finish it the quickest possible for it to not extend into NNOwO getting the upper hand.
And now it's making me worry a bit for G2Hell, because they couldn't get a kill there, right? And that was on targets that weren't necessarily doing the most damage back. If Zenith is the one that gets all these shields, I don't really know how they're going to contend with her. I feel like she will just be able to run through the team. So we're going to have to find out if they have an answer to that shortly. But it looks like they are preparing once again for a potential attack. Hook not going to land, but they do get the route onto Brom. Knockup will come through as well from the depth charge, as they do take the red buff, but once again back away. And it almost feels like a little bit of a stalemate is occurring.
It really is, because when you look at the stats, the only person who's going to be dealing damage actively is going to be the Nocturne on 8, 1, and 2. And Tifa, because Tifa is the one who's going to be doing snipes, and that's what reaches the backline when Sheena can't. So unfortunately, Kaltis hasn't grown at all in this game. Of course, you have the upgraded Infinity Edge from On, which helps quite a bit, but it's still a 0, 1, and 6 Jhin. So you're not going to be dealing as much damage. So it heavily relies on the Nocturne and Tifa.
Well, as the game continues, we'll see if things do start to change hands. Zenith obviously level 18 now, so kind of reaching their full potential here. 4 items, 1 more left to complete before they are kind of peaked as to where they will grow. But a few more items still to go for a couple of the other members. Obviously, Countess getting close to that 4 item. Tifa just completing her 4th as well. And I joked about it earlier, but it looks like we might be getting all the way to the late game. But hold on 1 second, as here goes a big fight. Can they get down Zenith here? Quite a bit of healing could come out of them, but they aren't going to get the chance. A lot of CC means goodbye to the Gwen, and that does open up for the potential Dragon. But it's not for another 50 seconds, so I imagine G2 go for objectives here.
It's an interesting push because, of course, you want to take down one of those members. It didn't cost you anything aside from the paranoia. That was the only thing. But they're going to go in here. Tifa dealing so much damage. Excuse me, that's not allowed.
Right to the arcane, and now the curtain call going to be matched. But as we've seen, a lot of shields, a lot of healing. It is going to make it difficult for taking them down, but they are forcing them away, and it means that the towers can be removed.
Can be removed. It's exposed. An inhibitor will most likely be taken down as you don't have your top laner. Minions are going to finish it off. And with that's a BM if I've ever seen one. Now, with 10 seconds to go, they can push for the Drake. I would argue that it felt like the timing was a little bit wrong, but they proved me wrong instead. They pushed in lane, and then they go for the Drake.
Although they haven't gone for it just yet, starting to kind of dance around the dragon and get themselves in a good position. Paranoia is going to be used to kind of slow the chances of NNO getting into this one. But NNOwO are going to start moving forward as the Logitech G Dragon is taken up, but they're going to sacrifice Colombia Bleu. They will let them go down as now Zenith stepping forward, but not going to be able to find any more.
It's a good trade. NNOwO going in, at least taking one person. I think it's as much as they could do, Zenith. Please, don't do anything stupid. You are 1v3. Oh, the on-horn is used.
Oh, Gwen, though, able to avoid all of that CC, but now the fear, the kill, it is going to go over to Sheena, and is that the overstep the G2 needed to end this game? Baron on the cards, 5 seconds before it spawns, and no Gwen. A big hit to NNOwO's 5-man stack.
Oh, that's such a miss shot for NNOwO because just before that, Zenith was dead because of getting picked off in the bot lane. She has to use the TP to defend, and now she ends up killing herself. That's very unfortunate for NNOwO, putting them in a super tight spot because G2Hell has priority and is going to be taking down this Baron buff. Both teams are on soul point. I am worried. I am very worried because this was feeling like we are going to be taken to a game 3. Now, G-Real, what are your thoughts?
It's in the air.
It's in the air.
It's unknown. I feel like it's one team fight and it's over, right? Because realistically, we've seen a pick here, we've seen a pick there. It obviously does change the tide of how the game goes. It forces NNOwO often to just kind of have to back away and give it up. But when we've seen Zenith with the team, it's a whole different story. G2 are feared. They are a little bit scared of that situation and they are trying to stay away. But now the game is slowly but surely getting later on and the death timers are increasing. One big fight could just end it all for G2 here, especially with this Baron powered minions. They're going to start looking for this tower, which shouldn't be too long for the world, but a strong defense is coming in from NNOwO. They've brought Zenith, but this time it's a 4v5 over to them. G2 trying to back away. Paranoia is going to be used. Depth charge also to slow them down, but the TP from the Ornn is going very deep as in goes Sheena onto the back line, manages to get the fear off, but is it going to be enough? The damage raining in, but can they pick up the kill? Sorry, super low, but stays alive, and now Super Elchi the grab onto the Nautilus, but it's G2 that are taking the heavier hits. Zenith stepping forward, trying to get onto counters, but cannot deal the damage. The shields were there, they were propped up, but no one is going to die.
How is nobody dead? At the same time, it was such a big lead that they had in the mid lane, taking down the inhibitor. G2 Hell has opened up a place for the wave to keep on pushing. And look at how much damage the minions dealt. J-Real, that is insane.
The waves are all pushed into NNOwO. Any sort of slip up, any sort of mistake will cost them towers and structures, as we are going to see a tower fall there in the top tier 2. But again, if it was like NNOwO are the team that, if they can get into a full scrap, can win these fights.
They really can, J-Real, and we are looking for a moment where I totally agree with you. It could just be one fight to define everything. And the Baron was used. We were still looking here at the Baron buff power play, how much they have been taking for it. There's still 45 seconds of the buff ongoing. They have opened up the base. They've done so much damage just by sheer push alone with the waves. Top lane taking down tier 2. I am very worried we might not be getting to a game 3, although we had such a stable and oppressive game even from NNOwO on how they were controlling the map. But we have approached the round 6 gold ahead for G2 Hell, and they're gonna keep on pushing.
Oh my days! Okay, damage on the tower.
Hello, Countess.
Countess just obliterates the tower. Goodbye to the tier 3, and they are catching NNOwO out of sync. They are finding them a little bit scattered away, and it is starting to cause some issues. The cracks are showing on NNOwO, but they have to make the move, right? We talked about how the G2 changed the fates from that Baron where they lost it. They had to start the fight. I feel like the same is to be said about NNOwO. They need to start finding fights on their own terms, and I think this is the issue with their comp, right? Yes, they have a few ways to lock down people, but it's not a big ultimate to really engage the fight unless they can get a massive shockwave, but that's a pretty tough prospect.
Yeah, it is, because G2 Hell is positioning very protectively. 14 seconds for the next Drake to spawn is the soul point, and a fight is imminent as they fight for the third game or not.
Zenith, the one that you have to keep your eyes on in these fights, the one that could really change it all, as Nocturne going to drop the Paranoia. Now the long range ults come in right to the Arcane, looking for those carries. Not going to really find too much though with that, and the Curtain Call. Zenith now stepping forward. Tita in big trouble trying to get away. The Ornn is going to get the knock up onto Zenith and will be able to hold them out. They're doing big damage to the Gwen, and they will finally drop her, but can they turn this into more? Super Elchi going into stasis, a little bit too close to Sheena though, as will be picked up. 3 versus 4 now as they run for the hills, but G2, do they just run straight to the base? They're all running towards this base. Sana, Miela, and Sari left alive. Can they defend?
Logitech G Drake Soul absolutely confirmed by NNOwO. In midst of all that fighting, inhibitor is going to be taken down by G2 Hell as the other inhibitor in bot lane is also exposed. They can do it. Numbers advantage tells it so. Encounters deal so much damage to structures. This has to be an engage from NNOwO or else, oh god, Super Senna.
Sana taking such a huge chunk of damage. They're only going to get the 2 inhibs and they're going to walk away again. And we're on to another round. I do wonder, is this the longest game we've ever had in Pathfinders?
Is it ever? That's a good question. Definitely
For sure,
the longest
Pathfinder 3.
one. Yeah, definitely. Agreed. All right. 43 minutes. 3 Drakes on one side, 8 turrets. 4 Drakes on the other side, 3 turrets. I believe that NNOwO can still turn this around because there's still going to be a Baron in 30 seconds. The Elder Soul will be coming up in 340. So if those team fights go as well, once again with Zenith going on a flank, it's possible.
It is possible. Anything can happen. We'll see if it does end up going which way. Is it NNOwO? They've shown purpose. They've shown power. They can potentially do it. I've wondered if they maybe should try and pivot into going into more split push, right? Because I know Zenith has been caught a couple of times, but they've been such an oppressive force. They are so dangerous against G2 that it almost makes me think that maybe they could really get away with that. But TP going to be coming in. Baron going to be abandoned by G2 straight away. They need to be careful. They need to position around where Zenith is, because as we've seen, she can just cut through those carries. Tifa, Countess at huge risk.
They are, and we see like the biggest difference in both teams would be Nocturne 7,000 gold ahead, and on the side of NNOwO you have Zenith being 4,000 gold ahead. So there's at least a 3,000 differential that is just on those lanes alone. And I think that overall Zenith still has the potential, because of being so much ahead and being a Gwen with mobility, with how much damage she can deal, that she can go into the backline. We'll see if this is going to be the case as the next fight for the Baron starts.
Oh, and Zenith already popped that Shroud. We are seeing Colombia hold up the line and buy some time for the team. Curtain Call going to be opened up with the right of the Arcane. They've already taken down one, and now they're going to be going aggressive. They're looking for these kills, but you have to be careful. Zenith is still alive, but there's the knock-up. There's the kill. They've taken down Zenith. They've taken down the Danger Woman, and can they get more? Miela running for the hills. Still very dangerous on the Ezreal, but look at Countess stepping forward. 1 shot, 2 shot, 3 shot. Can she get the 4th? It's not going to be enough. They're walking back to the base, but low H pass for G2. This could be still a strong defense from NNOwO.
Is it going to be though? Lizzie is going to cancel Super Sana's TP, not TP, recall, as the minions and the jungle is going to prevent them from recalling. The wave is here. 4 players, turret down, Nexus exposed, J-Real and G2 How are first or second. There you go.
They are the second finalists going through to take on Go Aurora. What a way to do it, right? 2 very strong early game teams taking us all the way to 46 minutes.